I can tell we are not on a Zoom call because no one is muted now. Two housekeeping items before we get rolling here. Bathrooms are behind me through that green door, up the stairs and to the right. And there is bottled water in the back, so please stay hydrated. It is hot today. My name is Dan Drazen. I'm a Vice President of Development at Trinity Financial. On behalf of Trinity, I want to welcome you to our Arlington Point project to your right and to today's tax credit award announcements. Before I introduce the MC for today's program, I want to take just a minute, and I promise it'll be a minute, to give you some historical context for this area. The Arlington Point building to my left and your right, and the 608 Broadway building behind me are both part of the Arlington Mills Historic District, a 75-acre complex that straddles Lawrence and Methuen. This site was attractive because of its proximity to the Boston and Maine Railroad, which ran just on the other side of Stevens Pond. A spur from that rail line actually ran right underneath our feet and serviced this building. At its height, this complex employed 7,500 workers and produced about 200 miles of cloth per week. Fast forward to 2008, when the City of Lawrence adopted a 40R Smart Growth Overlay District to facilitate the redevelopment of this complex. Since that time, a handful of these buildings have been repurposed into 250 apartments, including our Arlington Point project, which was completed in 2019 with affordable housing resources from DHCD and Mass Housing. With that as a backdrop, I'd like to introduce our MC. Joining me on the stage is a woman who has been with DHCD for more than 2 decades, including a nearly 12-year stint as its chief financial officer, before being selected for her current role in early 2020. Today, she oversees a $2.5 billion budget for an agency that works tirelessly to promote affordable housing across the Commonwealth. Please put your hands together for Undersecretary Jennifer Maddox.
Good morning, everyone. It's so lovely to see you all here today, and thank you, Dan, for welcoming us and giving us a look of how you and the Trinity Financial team have been instrumental in transforming the Mills in Lawrence. It is almost overwhelming to think about how much of the state we have helped to revitalize through the power of housing development. Since 2015, DHCD has led with the preservation and production of more than 20,000 units through capital funding and tax credit allocations in every region of our Commonwealth. New affordable housing development in our gateway cities like Lawrence and maintaining existing housing resources in partnership with local housing authorities and private affordable developers are both critical in solving our statewide housing crisis. I'm thrilled to join you all here today to celebrate our largest affordable housing award round of the year, especially after this year. I am proud to introduce Governor Baker, who has been a steadfast champion of housing since the very beginning of his first term, providing DHCD with increased capital budgets, championing housing choice, signing the largest ever bond bill in Massachusetts in 2018. Under this administration, we have had tremendous resources to pursue aggressive award making, increase the number of affordable housing awards we make every year. And I'm sure the governor will mention, we also have an opportunity to put immense federal resources behind a powerful, strong pipeline of affordable projects. Thank you, Governor Baker, and I'd like to ask everyone to join me in welcoming him to the podium.
Thank you. I'd just like to start by pointing out that this is a pretty savvy audience because you gave the person who actually makes the award decisions a much bigger round of applause than you gave the person who actually helps decide how big the award decisions are going to be. First of all, I want to echo what Jen said about how nice it is to see so many faces that we haven't seen in a very long time. As she started to speak, the Lieutenant Governor leaned over to me and said That's the first time we've actually, we talk to Jen all the time about housing issues, about rental assistance, about community development, about our proposals with respect to ARPA, about this proposal that's being announced today. But we haven't actually seen her. I think the last time I saw you was in Springfield, which was
Like 2 weeks before the pandemic.
yeah, which was like February-ish of 2020. So literally twice a week, hour-long phone calls with her on all kinds of topics, but it's just a voice, okay? I wasn't even sure she was like real. And the lieutenant governor literally leaned over and said, it's kind of nice to actually be able to put a person with the voice that you've been hearing over and over and over again for the past year. And I think in some ways one of the things about COVID, and thank God so many people in Massachusetts got vaccinated. I want to say congratulations and thank you on that one. And we continue to have work to do on that one, and we're going to continue to do it. And when I get asked what our ultimate objective is, it's more people vaccinated than we had vaccinated yesterday. There's no such thing as an end game on that one, and that's the way I hope everybody thinks about it. But the fact that we have managed to get 80% of our adult population with at least one dose, and we're north of, we're in the high 60s, 70-ish for adults generally fully vaccinated, that puts us in a really different position than many other parts of the country. And that's a very good thing, especially with the arrival of the Delta variant. Today's awards, and honestly, it really is great to see so much of the community that relies on and depends on these tax credits to be here today. And it's great to see our colleagues in the legislature, because let's face it, folks, and I'm sorry we don't have a seat up here for you, Representative. I apologize for that. You can have mine if you want. Oh, very funny. That was quick. I would just say that this is very much a team sport, and Jennifer mentioned the Housing Choice Bill. You know, that was 3 or 4 years worth of work, and we had plenty of folks in the legislature and in local government who were bought in on that right from the get-go. But as is often the case, it takes a while to make really significant changes like that, and it wouldn't have happened if the legislature hadn't eventually decided that this was an important part of our economic development strategy, an important part of our creativity and reimagination strategy for downtowns and communities generally. And I do want to thank the legislators who are here. And it's, Smitty, 2 days in a row. Not bad. I do want to thank the legislators who are here for their support for Housing Choice, because that will, over time, make an enormous difference in our ability to create the housing and the kinds of communities that we want to create from one end of Massachusetts to the other. So thank you to all of you for your work on that. It makes a really big difference. With respect to today's awards, there's a lot of great opportunity here, and it's attached to a ton of terrific projects, and I'm looking forward to working, frankly, with our colleagues at the federal level to see if we can't get the Homestead Act passed, which is a bipartisan piece of federal legislation that would make tax credits available at the federal level, not just to multifamily sites, but also to units with less than 4. If you go through any gateway city, any gateway community in Massachusetts, you'll find tons of freestanding triple-deckers, 3- and 4-unit housing facilities that I would love to be able to find a way to get into this tax credit program, as well as the folks who are part of the multifamily program. But the other thing I do want to speak to is this opportunity we have with this federal funds. We proposed $1 billion in housing coming out of that ARPA proposal, primarily focused on those communities that were hardest hit by COVID. And it's a combination of rental funding, it's a combination of down payment assistance and home ownership, and it's really in many respects one of the most transformational opportunities we have to do some very important things when it comes to housing. And I know there will be tremendous demand on those resources, because there always are, but we have in many respects talked for a long time about the difficulties associated with creating enough housing in Massachusetts, and especially with the inequity that exists with respect to housing stock and housing ownership opportunity here in Massachusetts. And I really do hope that housing gets the attention and the support that it deserves coming out of that debate with the legislature about where to put these resources to work. There's a lot of things we can do to deal with our housing crisis, and we should never forget that if you talk to almost anybody who does analysis around why Massachusetts is such a tough place for working people and folks of modest means to find a way forward and a way to sort of get ahead, more often than not, it comes down to the price associated with housing. It is the biggest single nut that everybody pays every single month that comes out of their pocket. And we could do tens of thousands of units of housing in places where they desperately need it if we can get a big slug of that federal resource made available for that. And I really do hope that ends up being a big part of where we go and how we think about this going forward. But today is about the rental rounds funding, and like I said, it's great to see so many of you here. It is the biggest round we've ever been able to do. Kudos to the legislature for helping us make that happen. And we look forward to continuing to work with you on promoting and advocating a really aggressive housing agenda here in the Commonwealth of Mass. Thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to
you. Good morning, everyone. It's great, it's sunny, it's beautiful out. Enjoy the moment. It could be fleeting. But it's just great to see all of you. I've always looked forward to this event, and it takes place in various places of our Commonwealth so we can highlight the projects that you're working on, and it's always well attended. It's great to be with you, and thank you so much for your hard work. As the governor said, over the course of this past year and a half, it's been a painful and challenging year for everyone, and we thank you for your hard work in your organizations, but also personally, taking care of yourselves, your friends, your families, getting vaccinated, and helping others access the vaccines that literally are life-changing and saving lives here in our Commonwealth. I'm proud of the governor's effort and our team leading the nation in a state that has so many people participating in that program. Let's keep it going, and thank you. I also want to thank Undersecretary Maddox. It is great to put the name and the face together today. She's like the voice of God on these housing calls. And she's done an amazing job with all of you, making sure that people are connected to their housing in a time of great uncertainty. That was really important, especially in a pandemic when we're saying it's safer at home for a long period of time. We need to make sure that you are in your home and being able to stay there, and helping landlords be able to collect their rent and pay their bills and meet their obligations as well. She did an extraordinary job knitting together a lot of different pieces, and we're very grateful for her leadership. Crystal, Kate Racer, the whole team. Kate, our rock star friend, it's great to see you too. This is beautiful. 87 units here. $87 units. Thank you, Trinity and Lawrence Community Works, for again working together. It's really nice to see your project in person as well. Every one of them represents a home to someone here in this community. We are very grateful for that. Also understand that you're very resourceful in taking advantage of our programs at the state level. The Site Readiness Program is another way that you can take hard to develop sites and make it literally ready, accessing the resources in state government to turn a project or a property like this that's hard to develop into the homes that we are seeing today. I want to just take a moment to amplify the points that the governor's making around doing more. You are all from various places in our Commonwealth. I understand Nantucket is here, so you've come from far to be here. Thank you. And I know Lee in the other B area, Berkshire. We call that the B. The B. The B is the Western Mass. How about that? And right, you worked on a program around Barnstable, Berkshire, and Boston. All right, I know it's hard to say when you're from the Berkshires or Barnstable, but talk about the 3 Bs. And thank you for being here. And there's a lot of you in between. I know Wareham is here, Ludlow. I see our friends at Wynn here as well. You're all just incredible partners. What I'm trying to make the point of is we know what works, okay? Rental rounds works. You know how to access these programs. You know how to take a hard to develop project and make it into beautiful, accessible, affordable, respectable homes. We need to do more. We have been traveling this Commonwealth for 6 years, but over the course of these past months, it is the #1 issue that we hear from in every gateway city, rural communities, and suburban communities. It is an expensive state in which to live. And if you have a chance in this perhaps rainy weekend to take a look at the Future of Work report that we just released, it will highlight the challenges that Massachusetts has around housing. So the point in the opportunity that we have now is this one-time chance with the federal funding that is coming into state government, $5.3 billion, and $3.4 billion in local direct aid, to make sure that we are using every penny of those resources to hit the highest needs and the highest priorities of our Commonwealth, of which housing is one of them. So we do not need to reinvent the wheel. We need to take our existing programs, put more resource into it, and see more projects like this built, permitted, housing choice, easy to permit, and build because of your expertise, and make them homes for people in our Commonwealth. Give you a couple of examples. In our proposal to the legislature, which they're reviewing, I know the governor has a chance to talk about that with them next week in a little more detail, $1 billion for housing and existing proven programs that work. Over the past 6 years, we put $1.4 billion into affordable housing. That represents 22,000 housing units, 19,000 of them affordable. If we were to take the $1 billion that we're proposing, we could see 6,000 new units of existing rental housing. That's really important. 6,000 new homes for young people, working families, and people that want to stay connected to our Commonwealth. The other is we know we have gaps, right? There's racial home ownership gaps in our Commonwealth. We want to direct some of those funds to home ownership. Well, we have an existing program for that called Commonwealth Builders. $60 million over the past year of this program, we've been able to provide home ownership opportunities for 500 families. Our proposal of using $200 million of ARPA dollars will make home ownership possible for 2,200 more families in our Commonwealth. That's huge. And using the down payment assistance program, if we put $300 million into that, we certainly will make that not only a dream, but a reality for people to own a home, call it their own, accumulate wealth, and establish another level of quality living in our Commonwealth. This is once in a generation opportunity. We cannot miss this opportunity. So we need to continue to work together, work with our colleagues in the legislature, make this a priority. We know what works, we can do it, and we can't miss it. And I worry deeply, as the governor does, as we come out of this crisis mode into taking our vision and making it a reality, we need the resources and ability to do it. So let's get it done, let's work together and see more people have opportunity and a great quality of life here in our Commonwealth. So thank you for what you're doing. Secretary Keneally obviously has been spending a lot of time in your communities, as well as talking about not only housing choice, but putting these dollars to work. I'd now like to give him a chance to talk about that more. Secretary Keneally.
Well, thank you, Lieutenant Governor. It is great to be here, and I mean like right here, because I toured Arlington Point 2 years ago. It's a wonderful project. I love being back in Lawrence. I spent 2 years here in between a business career and joining the Baker-Polito administration. I spent 2 years working at Lawrence Public Schools. I'd never worked in a gateway city before, and the thing that made the biggest impression on me was how many incredibly smart, committed people there were that wanted to work together to get things done. And we spent a lot of time around conference tables with business leaders and nonprofit leaders and Mayor Rivera and others to focus on that, how to get things done. And when I think about how we do affordable housing in Massachusetts, It sort of feels like those conference table discussions, except the folks around the metaphorical table are DHCD, Jennifer and Karen and Kate, and Mass Housing, Crystal, and Mass Housing Partnership, Clark, and Roger's here somewhere from CDAC, and the developers and the nonprofit partners. It again is an incredibly smart, committed group of people trying to get things done. It's inspiring. So today's a great day for our state, getting more housing produced. We have a housing crisis in Massachusetts, and we've been saying that for a really long time. And I always say we don't use the word crisis lightly, but we do use it often. And we want to solve the housing crisis. Now, one thing I learned in my business career is that if you have a big idea and you've got really smart, committed people that want to chase it, you should give them capital and have them get after it. And that's the $1 billion. So $1 billion for this incredibly smart, committed team of people that want to create more homes for our citizens will go an awfully long way. And I hope we get it done. The Lieutenant Governor used the word more. I think our housing policy could probably be summed up in one word, more. We just need a lot more of everything. A lot more affordable housing, a lot more workforce housing, a lot more of housing of all types all across Massachusetts. And I hope we get it done. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my partner in all things housing, our incredible Undersecretary, Jennifer Maddox. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Keneally. This past year, the Secretary and I have been on countless meetings to address the immense need generated by the COVID-19 health crisis. Congratulations to all of the award winners today. We look forward to joining you to celebrate every milestone along the way, from closings to groundbreakings to ribbon cuttings. Next, I want to thank Mayor Vasquez for hitting the ground running in January and being a staunch advocate for your city and your residents. We are thrilled to support projects here that will ensure current residents have access that they can afford and can bring new energy to the city. Everyone, please join me in welcoming the mayor to the podium. Thank you.
Good morning. It feels very good to be back with everyone in person. Thank you, Governor Charlie Baker, Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito, Secretary Mike Keneally, and Undersecretary Jennifer Maddox, and all of the state delegation members who are here, and community leaders for your work in making sure that this project actually happens. Having accessibility to housing options in the city of Lawrence is necessary for our community members and their well-being. I cannot stress enough that safe, affordable housing is vital for our residents to live in. Having a secure home contributes greatly to the difference in lessening one's stress and improving their overall health. This partnership between the city, the state, and Trinity Financial will provide Lawrenceans opportunities to deepen their roots in the city that they love. I am very much looking forward to the day when I see all 87 units filled with our community members and their families. Together, we're allowing some of our most vulnerable families access to quality housing. My administration in the City of Lawrence is committed to ensuring that we continue to invest in redevelopment projects and support affordable housing for that reason. We are contributing $200,000 also to this project. I am proud of the work we're doing to create housing opportunities and grateful for all of the people that have partnered to make this possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for your remarks. I'm excited to introduce our next speakers, our partners in the legislature. This past year, with the legislature's support, we were able to increase our state housing voucher program, MRVP, by more than 700 vouchers, targeted, right, that's worth a clap, targeted to our most vulnerable populations. I don't think we spend enough time talking about how important our state and federal housing vouchers are in the development and preservation of affordable housing. Project-based vouchers are an important part of the equation when the housing development team is putting together each deal, and are critical when we are supporting the development of permanent supportive housing and senior housing to ensure essential services are there and funded for the long term. And of course, we have the legislature to thank for the passage of the Housing Choice legislation, which will help lower the threshold for housing development in communities across the state. Thank you, Senator Feingold and Representative Moran. I'd like to invite you both up to the podium.
Are you? No, you want to wait? All right. We work as a team, you know? That's how we do things around here. Thank you for those kind words. And it's great to see everyone here. I do want to recognize Representative Pignatelli and Senator Andy Vargas.
Senator?
And I really want to thank all of you for coming here today, because there's so much great stuff happening in Lawrence. But I do want to pause for a second, and I especially want to thank the governor and the lieutenant governor. We've been through so much in the city. We went through a gas crisis. We were hit harder by COVID by anybody, and they've been up here nonstop. So I personally want to thank them and give them a round of applause for their outstanding leadership that you've shown in the city of Lawrence. I think the people in D.C. should take a cue. I'm a Democrat, they're Republican. We're working together. We're doing great things, you know? But just to echo what they said, and I won't be long, but, you know, over the next 10 years, Massachusetts may need up to 200,000 more housing units. We're hearing from the real estate community that just alone in the biotech community, and this is a great thing, that in the next 7 years, we could have up to 150,000 new jobs. So my question is, where are we putting all these people? These are great problems to have. In the city of Lawrence, this renaissance that we've had, if you were here 15 years ago, we'd have 2,000 stolen cars a year here. Now we have less than 200 a year. Our test scores are way up, our dropout rates are way down, and guess what? More and more people want to live here. But the median income here is $38,000 a year. And rents to get a decent two-bedroom is $1,500 at a minimum. So that is why we desperately need more affordable housing. And that is why I could probably tell the story in Lawrence, in Holyoke, in Brockton, in the Berkshires, wherever it is, but that is why affordable housing is so critical. So I just want to echo what everybody else has echoed. Thank you all for doing what you do. We're just the means to help get you all there, but you're doing the hard work, and we just want to thank you for that. So this is a wonderful day. Thank you for coming here. Trinity, thank you for hosting us. And like I said, I hope to be here next year and to hear even more awards being granted. So thank you all very much.
Well, let me put this microphone a little lower. This is Bill for 6'4", right? Right, Governor? 6'4", I'm 5'5". Before I start, I want to recognize some of my colleagues in the legislature. I want to recognize Representative Vargas, a.k.a. Senator Vargas. I also want to recognize my good friend from the West Coast, even though there's no water on the West Coast, Smitty Pignatelli. He drove 5 hours to get here today. I was so happy to see you, my friend. A little slow. I can see why. I also want to recognize Representative Devers, Representative, what was I so? Am I missing one? And Minicucci, she's not here, but I know she wanted to be here today. Oh, Jake, I'm sorry. Sorry, my friend. I should have known better. I saw the white suit. So I prepped some remarks here, and you know, I apologize ahead, because you know this is 90% of the population in this district is Latino, so I'm going to say a couple of words in Spanish as well. I hope you guys don't mind. So I said, I want to thank you. I want to thank you all this morning for joining us to celebrate this announcement today. This award is going to go a long way. I'm glad that it was done here at 608 Broadway in the city of Lawrence. Buenos días. Gracias a todos por unirse a nosotros para celebrar el anuncio de los premios de ronda de alquiler de verano de 2021, aquí en el 608 de la Broadway, en nuestra beautiful ciudad de Lawrence. This historic adaptive reuse mill project will provide critical investment in our city as we continue to make affordable housing in Massachusetts more accessible to those facing financial uncertainties. Providing safe and secure housing such as this is crucial steps towards helping families across the Commonwealth achieve economic stability and will ensure that families with no place else to turn will have a home in a great city. Thanks to collaboration efforts to the Mayor's Office, Mr. Mayor Vasquez, local stakeholders, our state delegation, the Baker administration, we have been able to ensure that our most vulnerable residents are provided with the resources and opportunity needed to succeed in every facet of their lives. The conversion of 608 Broadway represents a continuation of these efforts and will support this goal by creating 85 new affordable housing units. Let me say it again, 87 new affordable housing units, while also celebrating our city's rich industrial past by ensuring that our trademark mill buildings are utilized and brought into the modern age. La conversión del 608 de la Broadway representa la continuación de esos esfuerzos y apoyará objetivos mediante la creación de 87 nuevas unidades de viviendas asequibles. Lo voy a decir de nuevo. 87 nuevas unidades de viviendas asequibles. Al mismo tiempo que celebra el rico pasado industrial de nuestra ciudad, al garantizar que nuestros edificios de molinos característicos se utilicen y se lleven a la era moderna. Our city has always been a welcoming place for all, and we pride ourselves in looking out for our neighbors through our thick and thin. These new affordable units will guarantee that our residencies are available to continue contributing to our city while also feeling confident that they can thrive and build a life here. Estas nuevas unidades asequibles garantizará que nuestros residentes puedan seguir contribuyendo a nuestra ciudad al mismo tiempo que se sientan seguros de que puedan prosperar y construir una nueva vida aquí en nuestra ciudad. I'm excited to welcome this project to Lawrence, and I look forward to rejoining you all in the future once this renovation has been completed. Thank you to Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development for your support of not only this project, but all that you do for our community. Quiero dar las gracias al Gobernador Baker, a.k.a. Carlos Baker. We changed his name because he's always in Lawrence, so we figured, you know what, we'd identify with him. Let's call him Carlos Baker in Spanish. Also want to thank Mayor Vasquez, Senator Feingold, Representative Devers, Representative Minicucci, for the ongoing partnership, as well as Trinity Financial for making this project a reality. And I also want to thank my colleagues here in the legislature for being here, for taking the drive 5 hours away, and to be here with us in our community. Looking forward to taking you on this meeting. Take care. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Representative. Now, our next speaker is an amazing team at the neighborhood developers who have been a great partner on many projects, including a project in Chelsea moving forward with today's announcement. Your projects in Revere, Chelsea, and Everett provide homes for folks along the income spectrum through new construction and the preservation of existing affordable housing. I'm happy to welcome Rafael Marquez up to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Congratulations to all the award winners today, and thank you for all the good work that you're doing. This wouldn't be possible with all of you. I really appreciate it. I want to thank Undersecretary Maddox for this kind introduction and your support. And I want to thank Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Secretary Keneally, Kate Racer and her team, and Chelsea City Manager Ambrosino for your support. From the bottom of my heart. During the pandemic, a lot of municipalities in Massachusetts have been hit hard, including Lawrence and Chelsea. And never has the connection between housing and health been as apparent and as immediate as during the pandemic. Among our T&D tenants, we saw rates of COVID-19 that were 3 to 4 times lower than in the surrounding community. That tells you something about what affordable housing means. So I'm excited and honored to accept one of the awards today on behalf of T&D for 25 6th Street in Chelsea. this building is, this location at least, is familiar to a lot of the speakers today because we put it to good use while we were waiting for a funding award. Our partner, La Colaborativa, turned it into the warehouse and the building into a food pantry that has been serving 3,000 community members every week. So thank you for that. So you had the opportunity to visit over the last year. And next time you come back for the ribbon cutting, I hope, you will find a project that is supporting at least 3 policy priorities of the Commonwealth: transit-oriented development, climate mitigation, and closing the racial home ownership gap. First and foremost, 25 6th Street is a transit-oriented development. It literally is next to public transportation. The property abuts a Silver Line station in Chelsea and creates a better connection between that station and Bellingham Square, which is the heart of Chelsea, opening up economic opportunities for Chelsea residents. More and more affordable housing developers are pushing the envelope, or should I say building envelope, to address climate change. And at 25 6th Street, we will create 62 energy-efficient homes to a passive house standard, and we're really excited about that. And last but not least, while this award today is for the 56 rental units, the project also includes 6 affordable housing homeownership opportunities. And since it's long overdue, today is a good day to start closing the racial homeownership gap. Most importantly, though, 25 6th Street is just one of 28 incredible affordable housing projects that are receiving the announcement of funding today. So congratulations again to all of you. And before I hand the microphone back over to Undersecretary Maddox to close out the formal program, please join me in thanking Governor Baker and his administration for making Massachusetts a more equitable state by investing in affordable housing.
Thank you so much, Raphael, for your remarks, and thank you all for joining us here today. But before I close, I want to give a big thank you to my incredible team at DHCD, who are so deeply committed to our mission and worked nonstop over the past year. In the face of endless demands and new challenges, every day you guys showed up and just got the work done because so much is at stake. And it is an honor and privilege to work right side of you. And I'm just so proud of my dream team, so thank you. And before we take a group photo with all the speakers, I would like to invite the governor to come up to take a few questions from the media.
Why doesn't Jen get to take the questions? So let me just put a couple of exclamation points on a few of the things that have been said. The first is, what's really interesting about that site that you folks are developing, the food pantry, is there's also an epilogue to this, which is we found another location right nearby, so it's still close to the transit stop where the food pantry can move to, and it will actually in the long run be a better site for the collaborative than the one they were in previously. So not only are we going to end up with a whole bunch of affordable homeownership opportunities at that site, we're also going to continue to have the food pantry and the presence of La Colaborativa literally right down the street from there. With respect to this home ownership question, I've had several people say to me, well, you know, that's a lot of money, $300 million for down payment assistance, to which I've said 2 things. Number one, everybody who owns a home, for the most part, that pays any interest on that home has been the beneficiary of a home ownership interest deduction for decades. Decades. This country created the equivalent of down payment assistance for people for decades, especially in the post-World War II world, where in many cases, through zoning and other issues, people of color simply couldn't qualify for that opportunity. And a big part of the wealth, and this is a good thing, that was built by families who were able to participate in those programs came directly from those payments they made every month on their mortgage, where they got the interest deduction back as part of their tax filing at the end of the year, but they kept the equity value that was presumed and supported in that initial housing opportunity, and that became, for all intents and purposes, the way they paid for their kids' college education, the way they paid for an unexpected expense that came up along the way, the way they paid for so many other things. And we have simply done a bad job as a country in making those same sorts of opportunities available in many cases to the communities and the people of color. And that $300 million, especially now, is an incredibly important opportunity to right that wrong. But I want you to think of one other thing here. What's happening in many of these communities? Because we have all worked so hard over the course of the past few years, despite COVID, many of them have become places people want to live, right along the lines of what Senator Feingold talked about. What does that do? It drives up the value of all those real estate assets. Now, what does that do to all those people who've worked hard, who've rented apartments, and who are now living suddenly in an apartment where there's a bigger opportunity for the person who actually owns it? If you're not worried about displacement right now in a lot of these communities, in these neighborhoods, you should be. And the power of home ownership is, guess what? You can't be pushed out because you own. And you get the benefit associated with that interest deduction. And you have the ability to control a big part of your destiny. And that's why we put such a big number on that, because we view this as an urgent circumstance. And if we can convince our colleagues in the legislature to move on this, we're not talking a few thousand homeowners. We're talking tens of thousands of homeowners who won't have to figure out where they need to live now after living where they've been, because the real estate that they've been paying the rent on for a number of years on behalf of an owner is suddenly too expensive for them. And the third thing I just want to say about this is I've watched communities since we passed that legislation, you passed it, we signed it, with respect to housing choice, literally just take the same projects that failed when they got majority support last year at town meeting or from their select board, just go back and tee it up again. They got exactly the same vote. But guess what? This time it passed instead of failed. And if you talk to any working person in Massachusetts, they will tell you that the most expensive item in their life is that payment they make to keep a roof over their head. And if you read that Future of Work report, one of the most fundamental points it makes, in addition to the fact that we need to put a lot of money into credentialing and skill building so that a lot of folks have an opportunity to benefit from those 150,000 jobs that are coming in the biotech space, is how important it's going to be for us to create a far more diverse and substantial housing presence here in the Commonwealth. Workforce housing, affordable housing, senior housing, supportive housing. And I'm telling you, the other thing I'll say, and then I'll stop because I know I'm getting on a bit of a roll here, is the impact of all these issues associated with how and where people are going to work have real consequences for downtowns. And I think one of the things a lot of downtowns are going to have to figure out is if they can't rely on the commuter population to be a big part of how they support their retailers and the rest of their downtown, what they're going to need to do is figure out how to turn a lot of that commercial space into residential space. And that's why there's $250 million that's going to mass development, just run by some guy who knows something about this area, to help communities put their ARPA money to work with our ARPA money to make sure that those downtowns get reimagined, primarily, I believe, through housing initiatives and shared space initiatives and mixed-use projects, to make sure that foot traffic and that downtown traffic maintains the vibrancy that's been such an important part of the rebound of so many of these communities over the course of the past 5 or 10 years. There's a really big opportunity here, folks, but time is not going to be our friend, and I really do hope our colleagues in the legislature can move on this and move aggressively on it, and that we can get to work making sure that we don't miss this unique opportunity to do some really special things for some people who really deserve opportunity. And I'll stop there and take questions. Senator Kennedy, it's kind of nice to say that, huh? It's good to see you, Senator Kennedy. Thank you for coming. Did we miss any of the other members of the legislature? Any others that want to admit? No, never mind. Okay, questions?
Governor, COVID cases are certainly low in Massachusetts, but there has been a recent uptick in cases.
Yep.
The 7-day average went from 64 to 122. Are you concerned about this uptick in cases?
So the Delta variant, which is now more than half of the cases in the United States, is very, very contagious. And it first landed in the UK, which has seen a very significant rise in cases since it became visible there. What I would say is two things. Number one, if you look at what's going on in the UK, they've seen a very significant rise in cases, but because the UK has done a pretty decent job of getting their people vaccinated, they've not seen a similar increase in either hospitalizations or deaths. And that is because of the power and the strength of vaccination, which is why we're going to continue to run that program until we get as many people as we possibly can vaccinated. The second thing I'd say is that in Massachusetts, we have one of the highest vaccination rates among people over the age of 65, okay, which is the population that is fundamentally most at risk and most vulnerable when it comes to COVID. Our vaccination rate for that population is over 85%, which is a very good thing. But with that said, it's critically important for people to get vaccinated if you haven't gotten vaccinated, because that is in many respects the greatest and most powerful tool you can use to protect yourself and your family against the Delta variant and whatever other variant may come as a result of some of the COVID outbreaks in other parts of the world. But the other thing I would say is people need to continue to be cautious. I mean, I met this morning with some of the folks from the courts who are going to continue to require people to wear masks in court. I think that's a good thing. Our healthcare community, for the most part, is going to require people to continue to wear masks. I think that's a good thing. I think in many ways, when you're dealing with close quarters and indoors, and you don't know or have the ability to determine if people are vaccinated or not, masks will continue to be an important part of keeping people safe.
But is there a number that will give you pause, and what do you attribute this current uptick to?
Oh, this uptick, I think, is having talked to some of the folks in the infectious disease community, they think this uptick is absolutely a function of 4th of July. I don't know if you remember last Thanksgiving, but last Thanksgiving, before the vaccination program began, we had an unbelievable spike in both cases and hospitalizations that came right after. Literally like 7 days, almost to the day after the Thanksgiving, the previous Thursday. And a lot of the folks that have talked about sort of what is attributed not just to this. And by the way, our spike is very small compared to the spike we've seen in other parts of the country. And we do have a much higher vaccination rate, which I believe will be very helpful. But I definitely think the 4th of July weekend was a real issue. For the same reason that just sort of informal behavior generally has always been, for quite a while, a bigger deal with respect to spread than some of the more informal things people do.
Is there a number that will give you pause, like a positivity number that will give you pause?
We talk all the time to the infectious disease folks here in Massachusetts, and two of them are actually now working in the Biden administration that were part of our medical advisory board. I guess what I would describe is I don't start with like a hard number on this stuff. For me, it's a combination of factors, and that's been the way we've tried to deal with this all the way through. And what I would say at this point is we have seen a significant increase on a very low number in cases, which I do believe is probably driven in some extent by the 4th of July holiday. Our hospitalization number has stayed pretty flat for the better part of the past month or so. And our death data continues to be extremely low. But vaccinations is the best and most powerful way people can protect themselves and their families and their friends and their coworkers. And people should, if they haven't gotten vaccinated, they should talk to their provider and try and find a way to get it done. But my answer to you is it's a bunch of different things. But I don't think there is a so-called, marker in time that represents, the only thing you can make a decision on. This ends up being about a lot of different things.
Thank you. Governor Baker, good to see you. Ted Daniel for Boston 25. The Secretary of State's office has ordered the medical examiner's office to turn over public records requested months ago. And these officers refusing to do that. As someone who's campaigned on transparency, I know you believe that is important. Is that acceptable, and what would you recommend for an entity like us to do in terms of getting those records?
Well, I guess the first thing I'd say is I don't know anything about this particular case. But there are circumstances and situations in which public records aren't turned over because we're told by, a law enforcement agency or some other investigating entity that they don't want those records turned over until they complete their investigation. I don't know what the ME office obviously is often involved in a lot of the stuff where there are ongoing investigations. But I'll certainly make sure we take a look at this one and figure out what it might be. But the biggest single thing that drives the difference between sort of the right to know and transparency question is usually something that involves ongoing investigations.
Thanks, everyone.
And thanks again for being everybody. Congratulations to the winners.